Hello everybody, welcome back to the Young Fan Podcast and welcome to a really interesting episode. We're going to be delving deep into every League One club's start to the season, ranking them in a tier list and grading them. It's going to be really interesting, but first of all I've got to say, this is going to be very opinion based. I'm actually recording this intro after I film the rest of the podcast. I have sort of seen where this sort of episode of the podcast has gone, and I'm going to be honest with you, without blowing my own trumpet, it is quite insightful and quite interesting. I found myself getting into my own debate, which actually sounds quite sad, doesn't it? But I found myself already going into my own debate and really sort of judging these teams based on how I thought they would go and how I thought they'd start their season. Some teams have surprised and shocked us for the good and the bad, but we really get to see an interesting side to a lot of these teams. Of course, this is, like I said, it's very opinion based, and you'll know your team much better than I will. You watch your team week in, week out, so you'll know maybe what you expected of your club at the start of the season, and you can sort of compare. That's also what I'm doing, comparing that to how their season has actually started. Some teams, like I said, have started really well. Others just haven't got going, and maybe thought they would be high flying or really competing at the top end of the League One table, maybe just really aren't doing that and find themselves in a really baffling position, maybe, or a really disappointing position of their standards, or for their standards, should I say. But yeah, really insightful, and if you want to get involved in the discussion in the comments down below, that would be fantastic. I'll be responding to all of your thoughts in the comments. It's free to leave a comment, and also make sure you leave a like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell as well. It's the best way in making sure you'll never miss an episode of the podcast, whether it's a recorded one or a live episode of the podcast. We do them as well. So yeah, other than that, I'm going to let you just sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the podcast. Really, it's quite a long one. It's quite off the cuff. Like I said, it's very opinion based. So please make sure you don't get too upset with what I say. And like I said, I'm never denying that you know your club better than I do. But other than that, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the podcast. So, we're going to start off with the first team, then we're going to start off with Accrington Stanley, and they currently find themselves in a really respectable finish, not finish, I didn't finish there, position is the word, of 11th place. After 14 games, they've scored 19 goals, they have conceded 25, giving them a goal difference of -6. The last 5 games, we've seen them lose 2, draw 1, and win the other 2 as well. Now, like I said, they're just above mid-table, and last season, they did very well, in my opinion. I thought Accrington Stanley were a team that were a bit of the banana skin team. They were really causing some really interesting results against teams you maybe didn't expect them to win. And with the manager they've got, Coleman, who's been there quite a while now, he really does, create a really well-organised Accrington Stanley side who know how they're going to approach games and do tend to do that really well. Like I said, last season, again, they were really causing upsets and really proving quite difficult for a lot of teams in League One. So for me, Accrington Stanley, I'm going to put them in that B category. I mean, again, it's difficult, isn't it? I don't know where I expect them to go, really, other than looking at my prediction. That's the only way of really judging it. I would probably put them, no disrespect, I did think last season maybe was a season where they did slightly better. They were sort of overachieving last year. So I'm going to go with a B result so far this season. They're in 11th place, and most importantly, they're on 20 points, only 4 points outside the top 6. I'd say whatever way you look at it, expectation to reality or not, they're still doing very well, and they're in a very good position. They've won games this season, they've scored goals this season, and they're in a really nice place in the League One table after, in their case, 14 games. I'm going to go with B in this case for Accrington Stanley. For AFC Wimbledon, they currently find themselves a little bit lower in 14th place. They started the season really well. Recently been going on a bit of a difficult run. They have picked it up, should I say, in the game before last, which they won. They did unfortunately lose their last game. They do find themselves, like I said, in 14th position. Now, last season, AFC Wimbledon did find themselves in a bit of an inconsistent year, and you can see already this season, we're already seeing this quite inconsistent AFC Wimbledon side. There's no doubt there's quality in that side. I mean, they looked, again, have beaten Oxford, my team, this season, very comfortably, and look like a really well-organised side, especially from set pieces, and especially at attacking those set pieces really well. Now, based on where they are currently, they're sat in 14th, so judging that expectation to reality, again, does come down to what you, as a fan of the football club, maybe thinks, and again, even people that aren't fans of AFC Wimbledon have their opinion on their start to the season. But I'm going to go with C. I think they've done respectively quite well. They're currently sat in 14th. They're just in that bottom half of the League One table. They're doing pretty well. I don't think they're a team that are going to be worried about relegation. They're going to sit quite tight. They're probably going to sit, come the end of the season, pretty comfortably mid-table. I think that's maybe where I expected them to be. Of course, At the same time, we're only after 14 games and they're on 17 points. Everything can change massively, as we know it can in League One. But where they are now is sort of where I expected them to be. I'm going to go with C. Comfortable in mid-table. That's AFC Wimbledon, I think. To a T, I'd say. But they have got that. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way at all, because again, we know, like I've already seen the quality they've got at pushing up the table, and have caused already upsets this season, you could say. Next, then, we've got Bolton Wanderers, of course, a team that got promoted up from League One last season, did a lot in the market, invested, and also brought in some really, really good players, and have got some, again, really, really good players at the squad right now. Of course, they started the season very, very well. People talk about back-to-back promotions. They still may do that. They currently sat in exactly mid-table, of course, 12th position. They, like I said, had a great start to the season. Recently have started to sort of fall short and fall away, if you like. After the last 4 games, they haven't had a win. They've lost 3 out of those last 4 games. They went 2-0 down against Gillingham on Saturday and thankfully clawed it back to 2-2. But they currently find in a position where there's still a lot more that Bolton could change. If they change their form, if they change their fortunes very, very quickly, they can turn the season right round and turn it back to where it started. They started really, really well on that front foot, really, really playing some exciting football. And I watched them play this season. They beat us 2-1. And I was really, really impressed with what I saw. A really, really good Bolton Wanderers side. Now, where did I think they were going to finish? I remember doing, and again, they haven't finished here as well. And I don't want this to sort of be a reaction to my predictions. It's not that. This is what I think so far, what we've seen by these football clubs, how well they really have thought, how I basically thought they would start to how they are currently going. And I thought Bolton Wanderers, to be fair, where they probably would be. If I was judging their starts for the season, I'd definitely put it a B or even an A. But because of their recent form, I'm going to have to put it in. It really could still be a B, because I think they've just been promoted, and they didn't, to be in 12th position, still even in real contention to continue pushing to get into that top 6. They've still got a lot to give in this league, and I'm sure they will give that. But I am going to go with a C, but definitely top end of that C. I think I predicted with the investment and the players they brought in, and the squad improvement and the size of the club as well, that they would be able to compete. Of course, they had that financial difficulty off the field. They, of course, has been massively affected, and they've been massively affected by that. But at the same time, they definitely have invested, definitely have bolstered their squad, and they've got a really, really good squad there, no doubt at all. I'm going to go with C. That may seem a bit harsh, so if that's any consolation, they're the top end of that C category, pushing on a B. It's that recent form for me, where I think we're sort of seeing a Bolton side that need to quickly change and quickly find some form again, get out of this rut and turn things around. But I'm going to go with C for Bolton at this point in the season. Burton Albion then currently find themselves in 8th place and have started this season, well, it did start the season very, very well, and of course, now we're sort of after 14, 15 games, sort of seeing Burton sort of, I guess, sort of really sort of level out, and I think at this point of the season for a lot of teams, you're sort of really seeing now as we move into the Christmas period, where these teams really, really are. Of course, it's very, very tight, it's such a close league, but Burton Albion started the season very, very well, and after 15 games now they had a bit of a rocky patch in between, and now recently it's started to pick things up slightly. They got in the last 3 games, they have won 2. Unfortunately, they did lose. Well, not unfortunately for us, but unfortunately for them, they were beaten by Oxford United on Saturday 3-1. But still, you can see Burton Albion, like I said, started the season very, very well, and are still in serious contention. Only 2 points outside the top 6 of pushing and putting a real battle in there for finishing in the playoffs come the end of the season. They can do that very, very easily, I think. Well, not easily, but you know what I mean? I think it's going to be very, very doable, because I see that everyone's beating everyone. There's no real. I have no idea how the season's going to go, and that's the most exciting part of it. It is unpredictable, but I think what we've seen from Burton so far is a really, really good side. When you think when Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank took over last season, when he did take them over, they looked like destined for relegation. They're now putting in some serious contentions for pushing into that top 6. For me, Burton Albion are going to get a B. Again, I don't want to also sound also when you're doing this, it can sometimes come across patronising, if you like. I'm sort of like, I didn't think you were going to do very well, you're surprisingly doing well, you get yourself a B. I don't mean like that. I mean as in where I think they're going to finish, and this is, if anything, a credit and a compliment for your team, really. When I say that, I don't mean that in a patronising, arrogant, surprise, shock way, because I think less of you. It's definitely don't want it to come across like that. This is what I mean about when teams maybe I didn't know how they were going to start, and Burton as well, I thought they probably would be sort of around that mid-table area. They've started the season very, very well. I've been very, very impressed with them. I'm going to go the B place for Burton Albion. Let's go Cambridge United then. Let's see what Cambridge United have got to say. And, in their recent form, they have struggled in the last 5 games. They haven't actually won a game. But what I would say as well, again, a team that's just been promoted, they have won 3 games this season, and they have looked pretty decent this season. On the opening day, they drew against us 1-1, and I will link back to that quite a lot because those are the games I really, really remember. But at the same time, I've been very, very impressed with a newly promoted Cambridge United side. I looked over the league table and saw Lincoln City. But no, Cambridge United. And I've been very, very impressed with them this season. Very, very impressed with them. And even though they're sat in 18th, and even though they haven't won a game in the last 5 games, I've still been really, really intrigued. And like I said, I'll use the word again, impressed with how they've approached this league. And although they are, again, like I said, they are struggling for form at the moment, I still think Cambridge United will be okay. I think they will stay up. But what I've seen so far, we're judging it off after 13 games, and they have still got a few games in hand on the teams around them. Again, I think they have got that ability to continue and to push up the league one. So, like I said, a change of form, a win will definitely give them that confidence to get back to where they were and pushing back up the table. I've been really, 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 really excited to see, and I'm still excited to see more of Cambridge United. I'm going to put them in that B category. I didn't think they're going to be where I did really think they were going to struggle come the start of the season. I thought I didn't know how it was going to go when a team gets promoted. You never really know how it's going to pan out. But again, I know they're sat in 18th. I know they're sat on 15 points, and they're only 2 points safe from relegation. But to put it into context, it's only 4 points off Bolton, who are sat in 12. That's how close it is. So I'm going to put them in the B in that B tier. I've been really, really impressed with Cambridge United so far this season. Charlton Athletic, and unfortunately for Charlton, although you did have a fantastic win against Sunderland, you are going to be our first team that I'm going to have to put quite low down in this tier. They currently sat in 22nd in the League One table. 5 games, and the last 5 games, they have only won 2, but they currently sat, like I said, in 22nd position. 8 defeats so far this season. Not a good start for them when they really have brought players in. They really have invested in the squad in the summer. It was the moment where Adkins had an opportunity to bring the players in that he wanted and real improvement, but his sort of side and implement his sort of players and where he wanted to take the direction of Charlton in the summer, it has not worked out the way it intended. He's actually lost his job, so it really hasn't gone the way that he intended. I mean, he's not even in the dugout anymore, so that really hasn't gone the way that he would have liked. I mean, I'm not going to let that Sunderland 3-0 win sort of swing me either way, because ultimately, you beat Sunderland or not, you're sat in 22nd in the league, you're on 12 points, you've lost 8 games. Unfortunately, Charlton, I know you're a massive club, and there'll probably be quite a few Charlton fans watching this podcast episode, you're going to have to go in E, and if any Charlton fan wants to come and argue with me, or maybe disagree with me, I'll be really, really intrigued to hear your point. I'm not saying, like I said, you're wrong or I'm right, like I said at the start. But I just think when you're a team that really have got that ambition and the size of the Charlton Football Club as well, you want to be competing at the top end. You're spending the money and you're bringing in the quality of players to be competing in the top end, and you're at the bottom end. You're in the bottom, you're third from bottom. That's not where you want to be. And I hope for Charlton's sake that they can turn it around. And the size of the club, it's always nice to see a club size pushing up the table and definitely competing where the football club deserves to be competing based on its size and reputation. They really aren't doing that this season, so I'm going to go 22nd. I'm not going to go 22nd. They are 22nd, and because of that, I'm going to put them in that E category. I'm sorry, Charlton, but you really have hit rock bottom. But maybe after that 3-0 win against Sunderland, a new manager coming in, we will see that rise, and that really could be a possibility for Charlton. Next up, we've got Cheltenham Town. Of course, they currently find themselves in 13th, and I'm going to say it, they're going to have to be in the B category. They've been very, very good so far this season, and based on where I thought they'd be, I really thought they'd be at the bottom end of the League One table they've played 14 games. I thought after 14 games they really would be struggling. Again, I don't mean that in a patronising or disrespectful way of what Cheltenham played this season. They beat us 1-0. They look a really, really well-organised side, knew what they had to do, and have looked defensively very, very good as well. They've only conceded 24 goals, but At the same time, they look very, very defensively solid after watching them, although the stat doesn't quite back my point up. I mean, they haven't conceded. They haven't conceded the most goals. They haven't conceded the least, though. Let's put it that way. But either way, whatever way you look at it, goals for and against, goal difference. Take that aside. They're certainly sat in 13th, and they are going to go put him in the category of B, in my opinion, because they have done such an amazing job so far. A team that's just been promoted into League One to be where they are now and to be competing. I mean, the teams around the Boltons, the Ipswiches, above Lincoln, Portsmouth, Charlton, as I already mentioned. It's a very, very nice place to be. They're doing very, very well. I'm going to put them in that B category. For Crewe Alexandra, then, like I said at the start, when we're doing this sort of tier list, it's either you have that, the reason why you're in the bottom end, for example, and specifically E, is probably because, you maybe have that ambition to be competing right at the top, and you're certainly not, or maybe you've just had a dire start to the season. Unfortunately for Crewe fans, and for Crewe in general, they have had a pretty dire start. They've only won one game in 14, they've won 8, and they haven't won a game in their last 5, which isn't that difficult, considering they've only won one. So for them to, when we're putting, when they've only lost, they haven't won a game in their last 5 games, losing 3 out of the last 5 games. The odds and the chances of them getting that one in the last 5 are quite slim. The law of averages suggests that it hasn't been a great start either. But I mean, like I said, you can look at this and you can judge this in multiple ways. You can look at it from maybe you have that ambition of being at the top end, you're not, and that's why you're in the E category, or maybe you've just had such a bad start to the season. I didn't expect Crewe to be at the top of the league. I didn't expect Crewe really to be competing with the top 6. They have lost players. They've lost Kirk to Charlton, who, maybe not be where he maybe thought he'd be when he joined Charlton, but they've lost Kirk, and that's a massive loss, losing a player like Charlie Kirk. They've lost Ryan Wintle to Cardiff. They've lost some really, really big players. And the cycle of Crewe, when they use these sort of players they have in their sort of like youth set up really, and bring them through and nurture them and grow them into being the players like the Kirks and like the Wintles, and when you have to sell them on eventually, because that is part of the cycle, that is part of the system and the culture of the football club, it's not easy, and you have then got to wait for your next batch of players. I know it's not a nice way of looking at it as a batch, but they are the next sort of set of players coming through. You are going to have to take a hit. Hopefully, when you do that, you take a hit that isn't going to maybe relegate your side. Maybe a hit is you finish 8th with those amazing players, or those very, very talented players, let's say, and then the next season you have to come 18th. You have taken that 10 drop places in the League One table. That is your hit. But when you come bottom, I mean, that's a gigantic hit, and coming relegate and being a side that really at the moment are looking set on for relegation, that again, it is not where they want to be, and that's why I put them in that E category. Like I said, not because of the ambitions and the expectations to be finishing at the top end of the League One table, but because of the fact they just had an awful start to the season. 24 goals conceded, only scoring 10 goals, minus 14 goal difference, 8 points. Like I said, 1 win. It's not where they want to be at all. It's been a very, very poor start to the season. I'm going to go with E for Crewe. I'm sorry, Crewe fans. I'm sure you're feeling very, very sorry for yourselves at the moment, but it's not looking like a good start season for them at all. Doncaster Rovers, and we're going to stay at the bottom half of the League One table. In fact, the relegation zone, the last 3 teams we've spoken about have been the relegation zone, and Doncaster are one of those 3, because they're currently sat in 23rd. They're in the middle, they're the sandwich between Charlton and Crewe, the last teams we've been speaking about, and again, they're not too much better than Crewe. They're 2 points better than Crewe, and they have won more games in the last 5. They actually won 2 out of the last 5, and again, they've won their last game as well, so maybe the tides are turning at Doncaster. But last season, Doncaster started very, very well. They had Moore, of course, who's now manager of Sheffield Wednesday. They had Darren Moore at the wheel. Either look at it, you can look at the wheel, you can look at it in the dugout. It doesn't really matter, does it? They had him in charge. And he was doing very, very well. They were in the top 6. They were not running away with that, would I say, but certainly in a really, really good, promising position in League One last season. He left, and they sort of fell off completely. They absolutely crumbled, you could say, away from that top 6. And I think in the end they finished fairly low down, especially from where not too low down, but probably around. I think it was around mid-table. I can't exactly remember the position. But either way, so far this season has been a very, very poor one. I'm going to go with D for Doncaster. I know it's maybe a little bit harsh on Crewe. I've put them in 24th. Sorry, they're in 24th and bottom of the league, and I've put them in E, and I've put Doncaster in D. The way I look at it, though, is because I can see I can see Doncaster maybe picking things up. With Crewe, I really can't, and their start of the season has been really, really poor. With Doncaster, I can see over time if they can just get a bit of run going. I still really can't see Doncaster get relegated. I think there are worse teams in this league than Doncaster. So I think, and we haven't played Doncaster yet as an Oxford United, so I'll have to wait and see on that and actually how they are playing. But for me, I'm going to go with D for them. I'm not going to lie, it's quite close to being an E because they are in that relegation zone and are only on 10 points, but I can see with what they're doing, they have won 3 games this season. I can see them slowly maybe clawing up the League One table. I'm going to go D for Doncaster. For Fleetwood Town, then they're currently sat in 21st. We're continuing with our relegation. That's pretty crazy. The last 4 teams we've spoken about are the 4 teams in the relegation zone. Fleetwood Town, they're 21st, and they're on 13 points. They've won 1 of the last 5 games. They lost 3 and drawn the other. But I go with Fleetwood. It's quite a strange one, isn't it? Because again, 2 seasons ago, they were fighting in the top 6, fighting for promotion. They got to the semi-finals of the playoffs under Joey Barton. He's now managing Bristol Rovers in League 2. And obviously now Fleetwood currently find themselves in the relegation zone in League 1. So a lot has changed in 2 years, and that's football changes very, very quickly, and Fleetwood can be really, really, they know that better than anyone, really, can't they? So for me, Fleetwood, I'm going to put them straight away in that D category, and the reason for that is because ultimately they are in the relegation zone. They have not the start of the season very, 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 very well at all. And again, when you're doing this, you have to judge it to where you thought they would and where they actually are. But based on their start of the season and what we sort of thought we thought it would go and how it's actually gone, I think D is a pretty fair, representation. You trying to get, you know what I'm trying to say. That's where they are. They're currently sat in D. I think that's a pretty fair place to put them. So yeah, I'm going to go with D tier for Fleetwood Town. Gillingham then, let's see where we're going to put Gillingham. They're currently sat in 19th. The last 5 games, seen them lose 3, draw 1, and win the other. And like I said, Gillingham again, last season were fairly decent. They lost a big player in the summer, of course. Graham, I think his name was Graham, who went to, let's try and remember, it was, can't even remember, that's pretty embarrassing. But Gillingham lost a very, very good player last season to a team in the Championship. I can't actually remember where he went to. It was Jordan Graham. And he went to a team, again, I'm trying to, as I'm trying to explain this, trying to remember the club, but I cannot do it. Maybe Cardiff, but I don't think it was. Anyway, either way, it doesn't matter. It sort of means what I'm trying to say on my point. They had a very, very good start. They had a fairly good season last year. And this year they are slowly struggling slightly. They're currently set in 19th. Where do I expect them to be? It's quite difficult with Gillingham because you almost sometimes feel that it is going to be a point where Steve Evans' style maybe come back to really generally hurt them quite a lot and they may struggle completely. And then there's some times where they grind out results and they go on and have a really, really good season. I'm going to go with C for Gillingham. It's where I thought they'd be, hovering around the sort of the relegation zone and what they're doing so far. I'd say they're doing fairly okay. Like I said, it's very, very close down the bottom there and close across the entire table. But it's difficult. It's either D or a C. They're definitely that lower end of the C category. But I'm going to go with C for Gillingham. Ipswich Town then. Now this is really, really fascinating. And I actually planned this podcast episode about 2 weeks ago. And if we were doing it 2 weeks ago, the Ipswich will be extremely low down, probably with the Charltons and the Crews in that E tier. But recently, they really are starting to pick points up. They've given Paul Cook the time, and like I said, it was going to take time. It was a real transition year for Ipswich, and certainly a very, very summer transfer window. They brought a lot of players in. It is very, very fascinating, sort of what's going on at Ipswich at the moment. And like I said, they've got very, very good players there. They've got some fantastic, young, exciting set of players there, and it was always going to take a while and take time for them to all sort of gel together and create a really, really good side. And like I said, if we'd done this 2 weeks ago, they probably would be much lower than they are where I actually am going to put them. I still wouldn't say they're going to be as high as where I thought I'd have to put them if I was doing this at the start of the season, before I was doing this and knew how the first 14 games of Ipswich season has actually gone. And like I said, we are judging it on how the start of the season has gone, as although we are taking into consideration how we thought it'd go and how it's actually started. You have got to do that. You have got to take that into consideration. Of course you have, because every team has its level. You wouldn't just put Ipswich because, for example, you wouldn't put Accrington, who are currently sat in 11th, probably in B. You'd probably put them, if you're doing it off just League One starts the season at all, you'd probably put them in C or probably C, wouldn't you? But because of where Accrington Stanley and how well they've done, based on where I thought they would, you'd boost them up to that next level and in that B category. But going back to Ipswich, and that links them quite well because you didn't really know how the season was going to go. You thought with the investment and with the players they brought in, it would be a very, very good season. They've really backed Paul Cook in the summer. Like I said, recently, in the last 4 games, they've done very, very well. They've won 3 out of those last 4 games. They've actually drawn the other one as well. So they're unbeaten in their last 4, and they are climbing up the table. And the really positive thing to take from Ipswich as well is the fact that, and they'll take it for them in particular and personally, is because as well they are playing in a league and they're actually struggling at the start in a league where everyone was beating everyone. The league was so tight and quite easy to not easy, but fairly easier compared to a lot of previous seasons to climb up the table. A few results and you're really back in there. You know, it's taken them 3 wins the last 4 and they're back in 10th and only 4 points outside the playoffs. That's how close it was. About 2 weeks ago they were sat in the relegation zone and everyone was saying Paul Cook's probably got to go. So that's how quickly things can change in football. We speak about how Fleetwood have changed in 2 years. You know, in 2 weeks Ipswich have climbed up the league table and now 2 points outside the top 6. That's how close things are. So for me, I'm going to put them in that C category. Not Lincoln. I've already put them in that C category. What is going on here? There we go. I'm putting them in that C category for me because I think ultimately, like I said, they maybe didn't have the amazing start and maybe have that sort of high flying start after the investment. But either way, they've had a pretty good start fairly. And they are sort of really getting into the rhythm of things now. They're climbing up the League One table. In 2 or 3 games time, they're probably going to be sat in that top 6 if they can continue that momentum. So that's where I'm going to put Ipswich Town in C. So, moving on then to Lincoln City. They're the next team we're going to be talking about. They're currently sat in 15th. And again, it's been quite an inconsistent start season, hasn't it? 6 defeats, 4 wins, 4 draws. Been a little bit all over the shop for Lincoln City. And part of that is a little bit, it's definitely down to injury. And as well, they have been quite unlucky with that. And also, when you look at the last 5 games, they've actually lost 2, drawn 2 and won 1. That really is a very, very inconsistent, but that's probably the best way of looking at it. I was going to say strange, but it is a very, very all-round sort of. They've had a real sort of. They've had a taste of a lot of different results, different outcomes in the games. Specifically in their last 5, they've been very, very inconsistent. Is the best way of putting it. And they're currently sat in 15th. Now, where do we think Lincoln City were going to go? It's going to be quite difficult. Last season, Michael Appleton steered them to a final of the playoffs, and unfortunately, they lost in their case to Blackpool. But ultimately, Lincoln City are in a position now where they've got to, again, like similar to Ipswich, really, climb up the League One table. You win your next 2 games, you're back in it. But if we're looking at the start of the season, because that's what we're grading these teams on, I'm probably going to have to put them in. I'm probably going to have to put them in that lower C category. I don't want to be too harsh. I want to be quite fair, but I also don't want to sort of take away the fact that I've got to be honest and give my real thoughts on it. Where do I think Lincoln City would be? Did I think they're going to be sat in 15th? No, I didn't. For that reason, they're probably going to have to go in D. Again, I like Michael Appleton, and that's maybe where my bias is slightly coming from. I like Michael Appleton. He did an amazing job at Oxford. But at the same time, you've got to be honest. And I think Lincoln City currently find themselves in a position where I didn't think they would be. And also, haven't really had the starts of the season that I think has been that great, and that's the best way of putting it. It's not football. It's not the best way of footballing. I guess, punditry to analyse things, but ultimately they're sat in 15th, they're the bottom half of the League One table, very, very inconsistent, -1 goal difference, losing 6 games, and in previous years, and again, I know they've lost a few players as well, but they have also brought some players in. You maybe did think that they could be higher than where they are, maybe not in the top 6, but maybe definitely that top half of the League One table, really, really pushing and knocking on the door maybe of those teams in the top 6. So for that reason, I'm going to put them in D. For MK Dons, then, they are having a pretty, and I'd say a very good start to the season. A very, very good start to the season. They're currently sat in 7th place. Like I said, similar really to Burton. Really, they're very, very close to Burton. They're currently sat in 7th, Burton in 8th. But they had a very, very good start to the season. And again, they've won 6 games. They have lost 4. They've won 6, which is very, very good. The last 5 games, that's where they've sort of slowly have dropped off slightly. They've lost 3 out of the last 5 games. Only won 1 out of their last 5. So they are sort of really quite in that period now where you're going to start. Was it just an amazing start to the season, or starts the season, should I say? And the second half of this start has that now. Are we now seeing MK Dons sort of level out at their level in the nicest possible way? I don't know. Like I said, the next 15 games are up until Christmas. Definitely around Christmas time exactly is we're going to see a really, really solid, I'd say, position for a lot of these teams. And we get a really good idea of where these teams are really at. But either way, I think MK Dons will start the season very, very well. And like I said, we're judging this and we're grading these teams on how they started the season. Whether or not their sort of second half to their start maybe hasn't been as good as their first half. But ultimately, that first half was very, very good. They went on an amazing run. They got themselves into a very, very nice position in the League One table. They're still in a very, very good position in the League One table as well, I must add. So currently sat in 7th. Like I said, they're 2 points outside the playoffs. Whichever way you look at it, they had a really good start. And they had some great performers as well. Twine has been an amazing player for MK Dons this season. I'm going to put them in B. Very, very impressed. That's where MK Dons are going to go, in my opinion. Next, then, we've got Morecambe. Of course, they currently find themselves in 17th. They got promoted last year into League One after a very, very successful promotion-winning campaign in League Two last year. That's how promotions work. You start in League Two, you work your way into League One. It's not different. Morecambe were the first team to do it. But either way, after 17, it being 17th and after 14 games, they, again, started the season, I'd say fairly well. They've got some amazing players and players that have done very, very well this season. One in particular, Cole Stockton. Done a very, very good job up front this season. But in their last 4 games, they have struggled. They haven't won in their last 4 games, and 3 of those have been defeats. But either way, however you look at it, similar to Cambridge United, they've just been promoted. And it's interesting there. No teams that got promoted into League One this season currently find themselves in the relegation zone. And that, for me, is an amazing example of how these teams have come into the league and have just sort of surprised and shocked a lot of us. Although they may not be high-flying, the one's in 12th, the others are in 6th, 17th and 18th. But either way, they're in a very, very good position. And although they may be, both of the teams at Morecambe and Cambridge aren't on great recent form, but however you look at it, they're not in the relegation zone. They're 17th and 18th. For me, it's only fair to put them in the same category. I'm going to put Morecambe in probably B, and again, I mean that in a not patronising way. Maybe Morecambe fans thought that they'd be where they are now, and the start of the season was a really, really good one. They've won 4, they have lost 7, they've won 4, and drawn 3. They're you know what I mean? You add those wins and draws together, they've got 8 to 7 defeats. So that's a really, really interesting place to be. I'm going to put them in B. I've been very, very impressed with Morecambe. Been very, very impressed with their striker Cole Stockton, taking the league by storm. I'm going to put them in B for Morecambe. Right then, Oxford United then. Probably the easiest one for me to do because I know the team best and I know sort of where I hope we'd be and how the season really has panned out. It's difficult. I probably would put us... I mean, I say it's been the easiest one to do and I just said it's quite difficult. I've really contradicted myself in a matter of seconds. But I think, for me, it's that top end of C and maybe B, but I'm going to go towards B because I'm a biased Oxford United fan. No, I'm just joking. It's probably because I think Oxford United so far this season have been a little bit inconsistent at times, but generally have been very, very good. And have done some very, very, got some amazing results, and we can't really move away from the facts that we are sat in 6th. We are sat in the playoffs, and starts the season under Carl Robinson. Have never been good at all, and to be after 14 games sat in the playoff positions proves that we're sort of changing something, and we are seeing an improved Oxford United side, which is very, very good. Of course, last season we finished in 6th because of our amazing sort of late-ish run to get ourselves into the top 6. We're starting the season quite well, and we start the season in this case, I'd say very, very well. We have lost 4 games this season, but we have won 7, and we have won 4 of the last 5 games. That is a very, very nice place to be, and a really nice run of form. And I've been very, very impressed with Oxford generally. We've had our down moments. We've lost to Cheltenham. We've drawn to Cambridge, which was a little bit of a disappointing result. We lost to Wimbledon, which is quite disappointing. We lost to Plymouth as well, which isn't so disappointing. And we'll come on to Plymouth, of course, in just a second. But either way, but then on the flip side of that, we've beaten Lincoln, we've beaten Charlton, we've beaten Sheffield Wednesday at Hillsborough. We've done, and generally the position I don't think lies at all. It might be a very, very close league, but ultimately we're the 6th best team in the league, and that's where we currently are sat. Where I think we'd be at the moment, I probably thought we'd be hovering around probably between. I think we'd be around that sort of 7th to 10th sort of 7th to 10th position, hovering around the playoffs where we hope we'd be. We're in the playoffs, and for that reason, I think we've got to be in B. I've been very, very impressed with our start to the season, and we are grading it off the start of the season. I'm going to go with B for Oxford United. Like I said, it's been a little bit inconsistent slightly, but you can't face and move away from the facts that we've had some really good results this season. We're sat in 6th. I'm going to go with B. For Plymouth Argyle, then we spoke of them briefly about how Oxford United lost them 3-1 just a few weeks ago, but we have going to speak about Plymouth straight away, and they are going to be the first team to get the way in that top two of it. Which one's it going to be? Is it going to be A? Is it going to be A-star? Of course, it's going to have to be A-star, because they have been A-star so far this season. I've been very, very impressed with Plymouth Argyle. After 15 games, they've only lost one. They've won 8 out of those 15 games, and it's currently sat on top of the League One table, 30 points, joint with Wycombe, but because of goal difference, they currently find themselves top of the league, and have been very, very good. I've had the pleasure of watching them play this season. Like I said, they beat us fair and square. We've missed a few chances, but of course you can watch the match reaction to that at any point. But ultimately, they were very, very good. And when I watched them, they looked like a very, very well organised side, a very, very good side, a real unit. They had a plan, they executed it very, very well. And it's proved it's not just Oxford they've done that against. They've done that against a lot of teams this season, and have looked very, very good. And I didn't quite expect them to be top of the league. Maybe some Plymouth fans thought they would be top of the league. I didn't. Even if you did, I still don't think. Even if you did, we're judging off the start of the season. So I'm going to go with A-star. They've been very, very good. They have been an A-star team so far after 15 games. Been very, very, very impressed. Very, very exciting to see more of Plymouth as well. I'm going to go A-star for Plymouth. They're the first team in that top category. Maybe they could be the only team. Keep watching to find out. Next, and we've got Portsmouth. They currently sat in 16th, and they are struggling at the moment. The last 5 games, we've only seen them win 1. They've lost 3 and drawn the other. They're not having a good start at all, and they're going to be the 4th team to make their way in that D category. It's not been good at all for Portsmouth and the Cowley brothers, and in particular, Danny Cowley's got a really, really interesting job on his hands now. 6 defeats in 14 games, only winning 4 of those 14 games. Like I said, Portsmouth were again moving away from the jacket era. They brought Cowley at the end of the last season. They missed out on the playoffs in the final day. Oxford took their spot, and this season they had that sort of summer where they could bring in these players, and they could similar to Ipswich really. He could implement his signing and his sort of side to the football club, and it hasn't gone the way that he would intended. Currently sat in 16th. It's not been good at all for Portsmouth. And that reason, they have to go in D, really. I thought they would be much harder than they would. I thought they'd start much better, and they have really quite struggled. So I am going to go with D for Portsmouth. No, not much to add to that, really. I just expected better of them, which is similar to what a lot of people say about quite a few teams in this league. Like I said, expected better of Charlton, expected better from Lincoln, really. But yeah, I'm going to go with D for Portsmouth. Maybe there could be some that could be looked at as quite harsh, but you look at Portsmouth, you look at where they've been in the recent years. I think D is not a good place at all. So yeah, I'm going to go with them there. Next, and we've got Rotherham United. They currently find themselves in 5th after 14 games. They currently sat in that position. 8 wins, 3 defeats. In the last 5 games, they've won 4 and only drawn the other one. And very, 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 very good start to the season for Rotherham. Of course, they got relegated from the Championship last season. But it's either way, and however you look at it, I've been very, very impressed with them. And they currently find themselves in a really respectable position in that top 6. For that reason, and I don't want to I'm not going to drag it on and waffle for no reason. I think Rotherham are currently going to find themselves in a really nice position. I'm going to go with B for Rotherham. A really good start to the season, really good start to the campaign. They're going to be hoping to get back into the Championship as quickly as possible. This season was important, significant in them trying to do that. They are doing that very, very well. For that reason, I'm going to put them in that position. Sheffield Wednesday, another team that got relegated last season, and are currently sat in 9th, unbeaten the last 4, but 3 of those have been draws. Again, Sheffield Wednesday, it's a hard one really, because I personally look at 9th. I mean, it is, again, like I said, very, very close, 3 points, and they're back in that top 6. But I expected them to be in that top 6, and I actually expected them to be at the top end. I'd maybe even say the top 2 of the table. In fact, I think I predicted them to win the league. They certainly do not like a winning. They don't look like a title-winning side, really, do they? And that's the harsh reality of it yet, because they can, of course, change that very, very quickly. And like I said, this league can change in the matter of 3-4 games. You can win the next 4, and they could be, I could be eating my words massively. They could be at the top end of the table. But at the moment, the reality is they're not, and they're currently sat in 9th. For that reason, I'm quite harshly going to have to put them in C or D, but I'm going to go with C, because I think ultimately they're in still real good contention of doing that, and ultimately whether they win the league or not, they want to get promoted. That's going to be their ambition. That's going to be their aim: getting promoted, getting out of League One. The size of the club, they don't want to be sat in League One. I want to go with C. They're lucky not to be in D, but I am going to put them in C. Shrewsbury Town then, we have to go a little bit lower down, but not too low down, because they currently, of course, are sat in 20th. You do have to go quite low down, realistically. They, in the last 5 games, have lost 3, and they've only won 2, but they did win the last game. And I don't know with Shrewsbury, it's quite a difficult one. Where do I think they'd be? Probably around where they are, to be honest. So I'm going to go with D, because again, you've got to take into that consideration, and also they are 1 point outside the relegation zone. It's not a great start, is it? 9 defeats and only 4 wins is not really what you'd hope to see. For that reason, you're going to have to go in D category. But been generally with Shrewsbury, what I've watched them play this season, they looked okay at the back. They did concede 2 goals against us, but they did look fairly good at the back. Didn't look great going forward, didn't offer too much going forward. That maybe could be down to the fact they've only scored 9 goals this season, which isn't a lot at all. Is that 9 goals? No, that's that. No, yeah, there is 9 goals. No, sorry, 14 goals. I'm very right, 14 goals. It's Doncaster only scored 9 goals. 14 goals they've conceded. And 21 they've conceded. I'm going to go with D for Shrewsbury Town. Not a great start to the season. They would have hoped to be pushing it, maybe in that mid-table for Shrewsbury. Yeah, I'm going to go with mid-table there. Mid-table. That's where they hope to be. I'm going to go D for Shrewsbury Town. Sunderland then, the massives, the Black Cats, the big boys in League One. They started the season extremely well. I thought they would run away with the league, but they haven't quite done that. They have hit a few results in which have been a little bit poor. The recent one, of course, losing to Charlton 3-0 was not the one, and not a result they would have expected. After 13 games, there's no denying it's been a good start to the season, but it could have been better, and that's the harsh reality of it. 13 games played, they have won 9, they have only lost 3. But like I said, I thought they would run away with it. There's no denying, though, it's been a very, very good start to the season, and for that reason, I'm going to put them in B. Like I said, they have had a very good start to the season. They could have been slightly better, and that's maybe not why they're not in A or A star. We did expect them to be at the top end of the table. We always expect Sunderland to be competing at the right end, the top end of the League One table, but ultimately, they're sat in B, and they're sat in 4th, and I think that's quite a fair representative of where they would be. So yeah, I'd say, again, they could easily, they're only 2 points off the top, but I'm going to go with B for Sunderland. For Wigan Athletic, the penultimate team, and I'm going to put them in A. I think Wigan have done very, very well. Last season, of course, they only just stayed up on the final day. They sorted a lot of things off the pitch financially, and we're now seeing a much better Wigan side, to put it in the bluntest and best way possible, really. Wigan have been very, very good so far this season. Only losing 3 games, winning 9, currently sat in 3rd. I've been very, very impressed with them. Very, very impressed with them. And like I said, they could be really knocking on the door at the top end of the League One table. They already are, but I mean, top end. I mean, the title. They are a real title contender, like quite a few teams, really. I mean, it's that close. But been very, very impressed with Wigan. They got some amazing players. They did very, very well in the summer to get the players in, and they are doing that again. They're doing that really, really well. And similar to Ipswich, they may have brought in a lot of players, but suddenly they are gelling really, really well and really, really quickly. Maybe that was because they took half of Sunderland's squad over, but still, they have done a really, really good job. I've been very, very impressed with them, and however way you look at it, they're sat in 3rd. I'm going to put them in A. It's been a very, very good start for Wigan, and hopefully for them, they can continue and rise up, not just the league, but also the Football League, and maybe even get back into the Premier League, because that is where the size of that football club really should be. And finally then, Wycombe Wanderers. They currently sat in 2nd, and they've had a very, very good start to the season. For that reason, they're going to have to go in A. Again, like I said, we are having to take into consideration expectation and also and reality and where they are. But whichever way you look at it, taking that away, where are they actually in the League One table? How have they actually started the league? And that's what we're grading it off. And they currently stand in 2nd, and they've won 9 games. They've only lost to a really, really good side. And after sat joint 1st, really, when it comes to points, they have got a game in hand on Plymouth. If they win that game in hand, they're going to be top. They've won 4 of the last 5 games. Are unbeaten as well. Like I said, they only lost twice. They've looked very, very, very good. They've only conceded 13 goals this season. They've scored 22. They've been very, very good, and I've been very, very impressed by them. I have watched them play. They're like a great unit and a really, really good footballing side. For that reason, I'm going to put them in A, in that A category along with Wigan. And that sort of makes up my my ranking of every League One club's start to the season, and put them in a tier list as well. Of course, taking into consideration expectation and where they actually have started the season, how they've actually started the season, and also just looking at how they have started this League One campaign. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. Of course, you can get a discussion and give your thoughts in the comments down below. Being intrigued and always intrigued to hear what you've got to say, so please make sure you do that. Like I said, I'll be replying to all of those as per usual. Also, please make sure you subscribe and leave a like if you want to see more of this content. That would be fantastic. And until next time, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you all very, very soon. See you in a bit.